One of the most interesting characters that was introduced in Secret of the Mimic is definitely the ghostly white tiger mascot. This character would be seen all over Murray's costume manor, but we truly face him when we enter the factory's tunnels. His supernatural abilities and paranormal nature definitely make him stand out much more over the previous threats. But what exactly is he? The most popular consensus for this character is that he is a manifestation of David Murray's ghost that didn't move on after he died. But is that actually the case? Because when I started to really analyze this character, I think him being David's spirit doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. To explain my reasoning, let's first look at Tiger's voice lines. In an old video, I mistakenly thought that the disembodied David voice we hear around MCM belonged to M2. But it turns out that the voice lines were actually coming from the tiger. Now, you might think the voice lines are evidence for David being Tiger, because it speaks in his voice. But upon further inspection, Tiger is actually mimicking lines from other characters.
Please, call for help! Please, call for help! Think positive and believe in you!
Think positive and believe in you!
That's not the point! We have ghosts!
That's not the point. We have guests.
I baked it myself for David's special day.
I baked it myself for David's special day.
Daddy's busy, buddy. Why don't you go outside and play?
Daddy's busy, buddy. Why don't you go outside and play?
Tiger's voice also sounds oddly similar to M2's voice box. See, M2 has this unique glitchiness to his voice box every time he talks, whether he's in a suit or in his endoskeleton form. Have a listen.
Where do you think you're going?
Now, compare Tiger's voice lines to M2's David voice.
I love you.
It has the same exact glitchiness to the voice. Now, I want to clarify, I am not saying that the tiger is physically M2. The fact that the tiger can teleport should be evidence enough that they aren't the same entity. However, I can't deny the fact that these two are definitely connected to each other. And the connections between these two doesn't just stop there. Sometimes, when we see Tiger briefly move, we can hear this whirring sound coming from him. It's as if Tiger has an endoskeleton inside him, which would connect him to M2 more than David, because why would David's ghost manifest as his plush with an endo inside? We also see that Tiger occasionally does the Mimic's empty arm curl, that we see it do in the books and a couple of times in Secret of the Mimic. So what is the White Tiger? Well, to figure that out, we need to look at the area where we finally face off against him. When we finally face off against the White Tiger, we are located in Basement 2, which is very interesting considering that just before we enter the tunnels, we can find an audio log of Edwin beating up M2 because it was acting like David. So based on that, my theory is that Tiger is somewhat an extension of M2. See, when the Mimic was beaten by Edwin, it was described in the books that Edwin poured all of his destructive rage and agony into Mimic's systems, which is what I also think happens in the games. And as we learn from Frights, when a saturation of agony is mixed with any kind of intelligence, even an artificial one, like an AI for example, they will combine together to transmute the energy of emotion into the energy of physical action. So essentially, the Mimic is haunted. And as we know, haunted robots can cause all sorts of hallucinations and paranormal activity. One such case is Eleanor. She is a robot only haunted by agony, and she has all of these supernatural abilities to her despite not having an actual soul. The Mimic being haunted is supported by the fact that MCM itself is most definitely haunted, as sometimes in rare events we can see strange paranormal events occurring, which is an actual mechanic in the game called the tension mechanic. So since MCM is haunted, I would wager that M2 and Edwin's agony is the source of it. So I think that's what the tiger is. It is an extension of M2's paranormal nature. I think tiger is essentially the quote-unquote soul that inhabits M2. M2 was made to be a copy of David, and even after being beaten, M2 still sees itself as David. But because of Edwin, the David side was corrupted and it tries to kill us. That's what I think tiger represents. It's the physical manifestation of what M2 truly is, what it sees itself as, a damaged David. This was essentially shown to us in Moon.exe. The first half of Moon.exe is essentially us in M2's subconscious. M2 in its head is wearing the baby owl mask. However, the body itself was tainted by agony, and the program is now mostly copying Edwin, the moon. But deep inside its code, M2 still thinks it's the baby owl, that it's still David. Furthermore, in the Tales books, when the Mimic AI was given a choice of what to look like, it chose to look like the white tiger, once again showing that the Mimic sees itself as the tiger. I think this white tiger entity functions similarly to how other souls in the FNaF universe operates, where they can sometimes get out of their animatronic shells for a brief moment and cause all types of weird things to happen. But I'm sure you're asking yourself, if Tiger is a part of M2, then why doesn't M2 just use White Tiger to instantly kill us? Well, I think it's because I don't think he can. Before we face Tiger in the tunnels, it occasionally just says creepy voice lines and can appear and disappear. It's essentially just a phantom in the upper levels. The only time where it can kill us is in Basement 2, where Edwin beat M2. The agony of that event is at its strongest in that area, so the tiger would have the power to be able to kill us. So to quickly recap, I think the white tiger is an extension of M2, essentially representing its agony or soul in a way, showing that deep inside its code, M2 still sees itself as David, but even then, it is still fueled by Edwin's rage. As a result of M2 being haunted, the white tiger essentially haunts the entirety of MCM and is the source of its many paranormal events. Now you might think this is the end of the video, but I'm just getting started. There's another aspect of the Mimic that still needs to be discussed, and that is Nightmarionne. Ever since its first canonical appearance in Help Wanted back in 2019, Nightmarionne has appeared in every single Steelwall game. In Help Wanted, we saw Nightmarionne in one of the Night Terrors levels. In Security Breach, Nightmare plushies appears all around the Pizzaplex, seemingly watching us. We can even collect one in the Endo warehouse. We also see that some of the staff bots in the sewers look like Nightmarionne. We also see what appears to be puppet wires in a bunch of areas in the Pizzaplex. In Ruin and Help Wanted 2, the Nightmare plushies return along with the Nightmare bots. And finally in Secret of the Mimic, while Nightmarionne itself doesn't appear, Jackie during her chase turns more and more into Nightmarionne. The white face with no nose, black tears streaming down her face, black stripes are seen on her arms, and we even hear Nightmarionne's jump scare sound playing in the background of Jackie's jump scare. So it's safe to say Nightmarionne is very prevalent in the Steelwall games. But what does it mean? Well, after playing Secret of the Mimic, I think I finally got the answer. Like I said, during Jackie's chase, she progressively looks more and more like Nightmarionne. But why is that? Well, what if it's because M2 was wearing her? You could say even that M2's aggression and rage is somewhat reflected through what Jackie has become. So it got me thinking, what if Nightmarionne represents M2's rage? As I did more research with that mindset, everything started to click. Let's start with Security Breach and Ruin. In both games, we see several Nightmare plushies watching us traverse the Pizzaplex. Just like how the Mimic watches us in Ruin, with the several eyeballs watching us wherever we go. But most interestingly, when we collect one of the Nightmare plushies, we find it in a golden box. Other collectibles we can find in a golden box are the golden plushies and the Fredbear Singin' Show poster. The plush is shown to be as important as an ad for the first ever Fazbear Entertainment attraction. But it isn't just the golden box that makes it interesting. We find this collectible in a hidden room in the Endo warehouse, behind a mural depicting a child in the FNaF 4 bed. When we enter the room, we find a lone Endo with the plush inside. But I want you to look at the walls of this room. We see a few claw marks tearing at the wall. We even see one in the mural itself. This is the only area in the entire warehouse that has these kinds of claw marks, and it's found in a room with a lone Endo and his plush. It is as if this Endo was too aggressive to become a performer, and so the workers locked him inside the small room, just like how the Mimic was too aggressive and had to be locked in a small room for people to be safe. You see what I mean? The Nightmarionne plush, I think, represents the Mimic's rage and anger. That's why we see several Nightmarionne imagery around the Pizzaplex. The Mimic's corruption has infected the attractions and the robots, making them aggressive, deadly, and persistent. Looking at the Nightmare bots again, they are by far the most aggressive and corrupted staff bot variant. They are also the only type of staff bot that can kill us. Their jump scare even has Nightmarionne's jump scare playing in the background. They are also the ones that actually disassemble Freddy, while the other bots just shove him. And in Help Wanted 2, when Glitchtrap wins, the Nightmare bots attack the player. Since I think M2 is Glitchtrap, watch this video to know why, then the Nightmare bots attacking us makes a lot of sense. Furthermore, when we reach the Mex's room, put on the Vanny mask and stand at the sealed entrance to Mimic's room, we can very faintly hear a music box playing on the other side. There are also Nightmare bot heads all over the sticky note room, which connects to the fact that in the books, the Mimic likes to draw and scribble on multicolored construction paper. But now let's ask why. Why did Steelwool and Scott chose to represent M2 with Nightmarionne? Personally, I think this has something to do with both design and abilities. Nightmarionne is the opposite of the puppet. While the puppet gives life, Nightmarionne is death. It kills everything around it, just like the Mimic. The creature's design also shows that it's basically the embodiment of agony itself. In the Frights epilogues, whenever the Stitch Wraith would zap a person, the amount of negative energy transmuted would be monumental. So much so, it describes the victims as being withered into near mummification, with the mouth gaping open, the eyes being gone, and black blood is streaked down the face, which looked like black tears. This description sounds very similar to how Nightmarionne looks like. Nightmarionne is agony, and as we know, the Mimic is fueled by it. Now, let's look at Nightmarionne's level in Help Wanted. In that level, Nightmarionne is everywhere. Even while he's creeping towards the hall, His arms can reach out from under the bed, the closet, and even the hole in the ceiling. This creature can attack from anywhere and everywhere at the same time. In the Pizzaplex, we see lots of wires that suspiciously look like the puppet's arms. I think like the Night Terrors level, Nightmarionne is everywhere, his influence infecting the robots and the attractions, making them aggressive and dangerous. Security Breach has a lot of rooms that replicate Help Wanted, so maybe Nightmarionne being chosen to represent M2's corruption over the Pizzaplex is also a result of a Help Wanted being mimicked, which would explain the "in your dreams" line. Nightmarionne is first and foremost a video game character, not a real entity. His presence in these games are more symbolic than they are literal. If you think about it, this whole theory is very similar to the Storyteller from Tales. The Storyteller from the short story was a program that was designed to generate stories for the Pizzaplex's various attractions. It would take elements of older stories and mix them together to make a new one. It was then revealed that this system was run by the Mimic program. The Mimic program was now connected to the entire Pizzaplex. Every attraction and animatronic would get its instructions from the Storyteller, telling them how to act or feel. But throughout the story, we see the animatronics become more and more aggressive towards customers. While they never attacked anyone, their personality seems to have been dialed up to 100. But what I really want to bring attention to is the fact that the Storyteller would sync up with the Pizzaplex through LED lights. These LED lights are what makes up the tree's quote-unquote root system. These roots were a network of wiring that connected to every venue in the Pizzaplex, which is very similar to the puppet wires we see in the game's Pizzaplex. What I'm getting at here is that this story, in my opinion, draws more of a connection between the Mimic and the puppet wires, and the overall corruption of the Pizzaplex by the hands of the Mimic program. Like I established, the White Tiger is most likely the quote-unquote soul of the Mimic. So like the Storyteller, the Mimic, aka White Tiger, has taken over and infected the entire Pizzaplex and animatronics through puppet-like wires, which makes sense considering that Nightmarionne is often presented as a plush, and White Tiger is just a giant plush that also watches us. Whether a version of the Storyteller happens in the games, or it's just a result of Glitchtrap corrupting the Pizzaplex, is still unknown to me. But I would like to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll see you on the flip side.